You get there and connect with people and exhale and speak whatever your current truth du jour is in your circumstances and life. And usually you're met with this just, oh my gosh, me too, of like permission and acceptance and so on and so forth. It changed my entire life, and that's no exaggeration. Yeah. So all of that to say, like that initial yes, whether it's yoga or whatever, is never not like the catalyst of your life. Turns out my life's calling is apparently stewarding that life, death, rebirth cycle.
You know, I think right now would be a perfect time to share that this podcast is officially sponsored. And this week's episode is brought to you by Juliana Barbati Consulting. Juliana is an expert in podcast SEO. She's worked with so many different podcasts and helped shows grow, helped shows get more eyes, helped shows get more ears, helped shows, get more followers. And I am honored to be working with her and have her team backing the podcast. So I'm very excited that they are the first advertiser to join the Round 2 podcast, first of many. So thank you, Juliana. And if you are looking for any sort of services to help your podcast grow, feel free to reach out to her. Her contact information is in the show notes.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Round 2 podcast. I am your host, Nikki Corbett. And my guest this week is somebody that I have actually known for, 8 years now. And thank you to social media. We have stayed connected. So Elizabeth Rowan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here with you. And yes, I can't believe it's been so long. So amazing.
2017 does not seem like it was 8 years ago.
An actual lifetime.
Yeah. Even though it does seem like it was so long ago, but it also doesn't. I'm like, we blinked and now it's 2025. What's happening?
I know. And I would go back on that retreat with you in a heartbeat.
That was so much fun.
It was pretty epic.
Yeah. Okay, so for everyone's listening, okay, well, what was it? So Elizabeth was leading yoga retreats. I decided I wanted to go on a retreat because my divorce was going to be final, and I just didn't want to be sitting at home by myself when that happened. So I was like, I should go on a retreat. So I started researching retreats, and I found this company that was doing yoga retreats. So I emailed them and I said, hey, I'm debating between this one and this one. The one I ended up on was in Panama. I don't remember where the other one was. It's really irrelevant. And I gave a little bit of insight into what I was going through in my life. And the woman who I was emailing with, she was like, oh my gosh, you should totally go with Elizabeth. She's got great energy. I think you guys would really get along. So I was like, cool. And I tell this story often because I laugh because we're sitting there. So, okay, let me paint the picture. We're in the jungle of Panama, where were we? Bocas del Toro,
exactly.
Right? Okay. So it's this cool resort. We had almost the entire resort to ourselves. There's this awesome tree house where there's monkeys everywhere. And we have it. So we go up there the first night and we're sitting in a circle, and Elizabeth had saged all of us to cleanse our energy. And I was like, this is fucking cool. I'm so excited about this. So she gives her welcoming talk and expectations, and then invites everybody to go around the room and talk about their yoga journey and how often they do yoga and what that is like in their world. And I'm like, oh shit. And as everybody goes, everyone's like, oh, I practice 3 to 4 times a week, or I do this, or I do that. And I'm like, hi, I haven't done yoga in over a year. I just thought this would be fun.
And it was amazing. And that happens more often than not, that people come with this, and there's such a lesson in this. People come with an expectation.
Yeah.
That there's an expectation.
Yeah.
Right? And then you get there and connect with people and exhale and speak whatever your current truth du jour is in your circumstances and life. And usually you're met with this just, oh my gosh, me too. Of permission and acceptance and so on and so forth. So I love that was your introductory vibe.
Yeah.
And I feel like when we're that transparent and authentic, it really invites that in everybody that we surround ourselves with too.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was such a great group. It was so fun. But I just remembered like dying, being like, oh my God, these are like hardcore yoga people. And I'm like,
Professionals.
I'm like, I don't even really like yoga that much, guys. Like, I just thought this would be cool.
You're like, I just wanted to maybe take a surf lesson and hang out.
I'm like, it was on the beach. The price was right.
Sold.
Timing worked. I'm in.
Totally. Well, and I'm so glad because cut to present.
Right?
And I remember you and I connecting very early on in that trip about the reasons that you were there.
Yeah.
And that was so resonant with me on multiple levels. And frankly, that's how I got into yoga in a way. So it's always perfect.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. And it was such a pretty, I mean, even like I had gone a couple of days early because I wanted to like check out Panama City and go watch the ships go through the canal. And even telling so many people that I've done that, people are like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, I guess a lot of people haven't done that. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm so glad I did. I was just sitting there and could practically touch the ship going through the canal. That was the craziest thing about being down there and seeing how they even built that.
No, it was absolutely incredible. And it's such I mean, travel period.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just in terms of shaking out of routine and seeing like yourself in the world differently, I think is invaluable. And then when you're in places like that are so, like seeing the canal, you know, you're looking at this just epic scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is truly mind boggling. And then like puddle jumping to this amazing island and you're immersed in nature for better or for worse.
Oh my God. I remember being in the shower one day and there was some kind of bug in there and I just looked at it and I was like, okay, I am exponentially larger than this bug. I have a shampoo bottle. I'm going to murder this bug because I am not going to risk it jumping on my naked body.
Somebody's got to go.
Somebody's got to go and it's going to be you. Oh my gosh.
No, it's so good. And there's, I mean, like the willingness to just book something like you did is that's such a powerful like initiation, I think. And that's similar to how I started yoga. It wasn't a retreat outright, but I was living overseas. I was living in Hong Kong, working as an executive, married at the time, et cetera, and had always wanted to do yoga and had always had like this like mystical spiritual curiosity and started taking yoga over there just before work in the morning. And fast forward, it changed my entire life. And that's no exaggeration. Yeah. So all of that to say, like that initial yes, whether it's yoga or whatever, is never not like the catalyst of your life. And I mean, you and I have stayed in touch. I'm sure you're in touch with the other folks from that trip. And it just continues.
So crazy, especially kind of like what you're saying, how like sometimes that one decision can be like at the time, maybe you don't recognize it, right? Like for you, you're like, okay, I started to take yoga before work. And now it's like just catapulted you into this huge career doing something polar opposite of what you were doing when you were in Hong Kong. And then like for me, that kind of really like pushed me further into being comfortable, like traveling solo and doing things on my own. And even just, you know, I had never thought about going on a trip with strangers. And I mean, I feel like I got so lucky with that one because I did go on another trip the following year. And aside from like one of the girls, like I think the trip was not for me. And, but I was on it. And I don't think that I was a fan favorite amongst the rest of the group, but whatever.
There is a very special flavor of traveling with a group of people who don't know each other, such that it becomes this just like immersion into who everybody is real freaking fast. Yeah. And, you know, because you're out of your comfort zone, you're out of routine, nothing is going to be as convenient as it is back home. Who are these people? So the whole situation from the jump is rife with like spontaneity, and also humans really rub down to their like raw essence.
Oh yeah.
In a way that you cannot hide.
No, you truly can't. Like I often say, like when traveling abroad, like a task or a situation that you wouldn't even think twice about at home can prove to be the most arduous, like impossible, frustrating to tears situation. Like I lost it last year at trying to cross the street.
Wait, where was this?
I was in Poland and I had taken, oh my God. I had missed not one, but 2 trains because of my own just stupidity. I don't even know. Like I had asked the hotel, I said, what time? I said, if my train is at 1:43, what time should I leave the hotel? They said 1. It'll take you 15 minutes to get there. Then you have time to get down to the platform and get on the train. And I thought, perfect. Well, yes, that would have been perfect if I was in an English speaking country and if I, understood like the time of day and potential traffic constraints. And if I actually left at 1 on the dot. I went downstairs at 1 and called an Uber, and then it took 10 minutes to get there. And then we were literally in bumper to bumper traffic. I get to the train station. Not only, and mind you, also, I have a fuck ton of luggage. I had 3 suitcases and a bag because I was going to be gone for so long. And I wasn't thinking through, I didn't think it through. Let's just leave it at that. So anyway, I get to the train station. The train is not there. I had missed it. So I asked a girl on the platform, I said, hey, so I clearly missed this train. Can I just get on the next one to where I'm going? And they can just like, I have a ticket. She's like, oh no, you'll have to go get a new ticket. Like that's not how we do it here.
Of course you do.
Yeah. So if that were to happen again, I'd be like, fuck this. I'm just going to get on the train and be like, well, look, I already paid for a ticket to where I'm going. So like, just scan it. Well, like whatever, anyway. So I go upstairs, get a new ticket, come back down, waiting. The time comes and goes, no train. What I've realized since then is that the train was just behind me. It was a two-track platform. I was looking this way. It was behind me. So when I finally get there, my phone, it will connect to do literally everything except process a payment to call an Uber. So it's just the circle of death. So I finally get downstairs out of this parking garage that was adjacent to a mall that was on a cobblestone street. And I'm trying to cross the cobblestone street with all of my luggage. And I just lose my mind. And I'm just like, thank God, these literal teenage boys, I'm talking like pimples, braces. They're like, do you need help? And I'm like, yeah, I really need help.
What makes you think that? No, travel
can... Is it all the luggage or is it the fact that I'm crying?
Travel can break you.
Yeah, literally.
Break you.
Yeah.
But in the best way. In the best way.
Absolutely. But you're so true. It's like, so then when you go on a group trip with strangers, like your frustrations and I guess particularities come out rather quickly.
Oh, totally. And in high contrast to whomever is around you.
Yeah.
For sure.
Totally.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this trip was in India, and what I didn't realize going into it was that they were going to take us to all these different spots, which, you read, oh, cool, we're going to go to like a textile factory and we're going to go to a rug factory. It's like, right on. Well, but hello, of course they're going to try to sell you stuff, So it's like by the 3rd time of going to one of these places and then being sold, trying to be sold. And then, then you have some girls who are like, well, I want to ship a rug home. And I'm like, oh my God, we're going to be here forever. Like make up your mind to buy a rug.
Where were you in India?
It started in Delhi and did like the Golden Triangle.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah. So, would not do it again. But would like to go back to India to experience like Southern India. And I would never recommend that company either. I mean, we took an overnight train that it was an 1.5-hour flight. I'm like, you put me on a train for 12.5 hours when I could have been on a plane in 1.5 hours?
I think maybe I've been on the same train.
It was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare.
Well, and like you were talking about, I mean, travel can be so intense, period. And then you've got a group. So now you're at the 2nd tier. And then India is, I found so intense. And it's intense like on the senses. It's an intense just transit from the US.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's intense emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, spiritually, that like I was there for a spiritual pilgrimage. Your retreat sounds like maybe you all were doing something akin to that. I don't know, but it's like India was probably the most intense travel.
Yeah.
And I've traveled a lot.
Yeah.
And India just asks a lot of you.
Mm-hmm.
And it delivers, but it asks a lot of you, I feel.
Yeah, it was just, I was definitely out of my comfort zone, like more than I wasn't. And then I got really sick, and that was a whole other, nobody had a thermometer. And then, I hadn't been sick in a really long time, but like I knew I had a fever. And then in retrospect, having been sick since then and having a fever, I was like, the last time I had a fever, it was like 101, and I felt like absolute dog shit. And I think back though to how sick I was in India, and I'm like, oh, this was a cakewalk compared. I'm so curious what my temperature was when I was in India. Wow. Because yeah. And it was
that
just
tracks.
Crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I'm like, where did I get it? Where did it come from? What was it? Like, I got home. And yeah.
You're like so feverish, you're seeing God. And right. India's like, great, that's the point.
They're like, welcome. We're glad you're here. I'm like,
totally. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Yeah. So yeah, travel is definitely, yeah. I don't know. It's funny because as I'm about to say this, I'm about to follow it up with something else that is so contradictory to it. But like, I don't necessarily know that I would do a group trip like that again. Yet I also, one of the things that I really want to do in the next few years is like lead a trip, because I have gotten so much out of solo travel, but I know that solo travel is not for everyone. So I want to be able to like curate trips for people who are like me, who really want to solo travel, but either just don't have or they don't feel that they have the capacity to plan something, or they don't feel like they have the courage to go and do it on their own. So I want it to be like less about let's go to this museum and let's do this and all these like touristy things, and more about just like, this is like how you experience another country.
I love that concept. Because also it's less we all do everything together.
Yeah.
And more like this almost like home base, right?
Yes.
Like this like connection, this loose web that you've got in whatever location. That sounds amazing. Yeah. Especially for women who travel solo.
Yeah. It's like, I just want people to feel that, travel isn't scary, and it isn't also just, tourists and museums and eating at tourist traps, and that, there is a way to go and experience things that are more local and really get a feel for the country that you went to versus, being totally chaotic and full of, people with signs and like lanyards.
Okay, but will there be yoga?
Yoga will be choose your own adventure.
That seems like a full circle moment for you.
I know, right? Oh my God. I'll be like, I can get you to the class. I will not be leading it nor taking it.
Amazing.
If you want to go for a walk, I can take you for a walk.
Keep me posted. I love this idea.
I will. Thank you. So, okay, I wanted to hear more about you. I mean, obviously we've stayed in touch, but I certainly don't know all of the details. So you're in Atlanta still?
I'm in Atlanta.
Okay.
I have been here, 10 years, just over 10 years now.
Wow.
Which went by in a flash. Yes. Yeah. When you and I met, I had been teaching yoga full time for several years. I had newly started at that time a mentorship for fellow yoga teachers and spiritual business owners, so that they can really hone in on their gifts and make a successful business out of it, so that they can continue to share their work. Because we all know the kind of like broke healer archetype, and I wanted to disrupt that. So that's what I was doing when you and I connected. Prior to that, like I shared with you, I discovered yoga really in Hong Kong when I was at this peak moment in my life of, wow, I have accomplished the list I did all of the things. And this was like early 30s. I did all of the things. And why do I feel like I'm bleeding out on a soul level?
Yeah.
So started my yoga practice there, was doing that before work, was living this like executive expat life, which was amazing and not fulfilling on a soul level as much as it was certainly on an ego level. And, you know, I had, this is kind of my thing, but I had started perhaps my first conscious cycle of dismantling everything.
Okay.
Not unlike when you walked up to the yoga retreat.
Yeah.
And building anew. So then when you and I met, I was in a bit of a like settle post that, like left the job, left the marriage, left that city, all of the things, started my own business. And then cut to present, turns out my life's calling is apparently stewarding that life, death, rebirth cycle.
Okay.
So whether that's like in deep yoga practice with clients and students and ritual work that we do in like the business side of things, that has completely become my purpose. And it took going through all of the alternative to come to this realization, which we know that story.
Well, I often say that it's just as important to figure out what you don't want to do as it is to figure out what you do want to do. So, and sometimes I think people get lost in that and they think like, oh, I can't figure out what I want to do. But it's like, okay, how many things have you figured out that you don't want to do though? Because that's like really cool. At least you know you don't want to do those things. So keep trying all the other stuff.
You know you don't want to do them. And, you know, it took me some time, but I was able to really later appreciate and utilize some of the things that in a different context I didn't like to do, but now they serve me really well in my business. So absolutely to that willingness to just experiment. And I think I had to really work within myself on cultivating a sense of grace for myself about experimenting.
Yeah.
Like getting good with knowing it's an experiment and detachment-ish from the outcome. And the process and like letting it be messy. And I come to love the messy portion of the programming.
Yeah. No, it's so good. And I think that I'm so grateful for kind of where we are now is that we're in this time and space where everybody, like there's so much to be done and there's so much that you can do and there's so many different ways to make money and everybody is so focused on themselves that it's like you can be messy and you can be trying things and one day you can be this color and the next day you can be that color and the next day you can be, you know, a combination of the two because no one actually really cares, you know, and then you find your people when you finally find that, you know, feeling of that true, like, yes, this is what I want to do. And this is the purpose behind like who I am.
Yeah. I think it's this fantastic stripping away and it kind of tracks back to the authenticity that we spoke of earlier, where if you're in the messy middle, chances are you're going to find and resonate with others who are too. And then it just further amplifies being authentic.
Yeah.
I think a lot of like so much work going online enabled that. I think COVID stripped a lot of, you know, the like surface stuff away. So I'm all for it. Absolutely.
So I have a question about purpose because this actually, I was reading this article by this writer on Substack the other day, and she said she's a bit older. She's in like, you know, she's older than 60. And so she was talking about like how oftentimes when people retire, it's like, oh, like now I can go and like find my purpose and like do all these different things. And she was like, I don't really like that because what does that mean about everything that I've done up until now? But then she was also like, well, what does that mean if I, you know, have a day where I'm not doing something, right? So she was correlating it to that she's currently like doing work volunteering with like a local food bank. but she said that they had been on like a pause for whatever reason. So she was like, so now like, do my days lack purpose? And so I was like, this is such an interesting way to think about it. And so I commented on it and I said, well, perhaps like purpose is more of a mindset than an action. I said, because you're tying purpose to an action. And if there's no longer like they're on a break, so you're not able to do that action, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a purpose. I said, so what if the purpose is the mindset of like I want to give back, so that it got me just like my wheels turning on purpose. And so when you were saying that, I was like, ooh, what do you think about that?
I love that. I feel like maybe my first thought is maybe the purpose forever is a like availability to having a purpose, whatever shape that takes that day. So that it's less concrete and less black and white and more just being like available to act, to like that state arising. So in this example, in the food organization's closed and she's kind of floundering, I would be curious around what else gives her that feeling.
Yeah.
Beyond that particular way of being in service. And is it, was it the joy of being of help? Was it the joy of connecting with people? Because that's ever available in large part. Was it the joy of being out of her otherwise routine life? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a cool question mark to check out around what if I just like was ready for purpose at any given moment of my life.
Yeah.
And it almost invites an awareness too of just the small things, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you don't have to sign up in an official capacity to your capital P purpose. Maybe it can happen on your way to, your walk to the mailbox or something like that. So I think I love that prompt and I love that query. And it's interesting too, because it really highlights like in the United States in particular, this like before and after line that retirement seems to give.
Right.
And to your point, like how do you appreciate all of the decades up until that point?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, so my friend Eric, he was on the podcast a few weeks ago and the company he works for is literally called the Purpose Company. And I love it. And they have this assessment that you can take and it has 625 possible outcomes based on your answers to these questions,
wow.
Which I thought was mind blowing because it made it feel so tailored to me. Versus like doing like the Myers-Briggs or something where you just get like, a coded for the 4 letters that are all in a different code or whatever. So I was like, this is really cool. So I did the assessment and then he spent some time with me walking through it. And I hope I'm saying this correctly, but it's basically like their whole thing is like, when you're living in accordance with your purpose, that's where you feel like the most fulfilled. If you're doing, and your purpose can be anything, right? It's not necessarily like, I'm, president of the world or I'm, running a major corporation or I'm a multi-millionaire. It's more like it could be anything. So I thought that was really cool. So it's just like, as this has been constantly like weaved into, you hear more and more people talking about it. But then when I, going back to this Substack article that I read, it's so different too, because as we've moved into this like digital age, right? I think that there's something out there where it said like by 2030, 50% of people will be working essentially for themselves and doing different things. And it's going to be like so much less of think about it. When you and me got out of college, it was you go and you get a 9 to 5. And like
Absolutely.
that was your job. You didn't have like, you weren't like
there
teaching
was no
yoga.
Zoom.
There was no Zoom. You didn't have a podcast. You weren't an influencer. You didn't have a social media presence. And like, whereas now it's like, you can go and work for a corporate company, but you can also teach yoga at night. You can have a podcast. You can be an influencer. You can do all of these things. So I think that like generationally, it's like, as we're seeing that generation start to retire, they are the people who are like, I worked at the post office for 35 years, or I did this job for 45 years. And maybe they weren't super fulfilled and maybe it wasn't their life purpose. So now that they're free from that, they're having these moments of, oh shit, well, like, what is my purpose now? Whereas like, I think we're seeing it younger generations be able to just go off and do stuff now. Cause like, they can.
And to have multiple forms of purpose. Like you and I talked about, you have a whole like former life, at least before you and I connected, and since, and likewise. And I feel like I do that every 7 years on the regular. And I feel like purpose gets to be so organic.
Yeah.
Because like purpose in this phase of life is going to have a different flavor than purpose in this shape of life, and so on. And I want all of them, like I want to experience every possible potential purpose that I could be here on this planet for. And I totally agree. I think it's like, yes, it's a generational, like a little bit of a systemic thing. And also, that said, I feel like when I spend time with older people, I feel from them such a rich feeling of purpose.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Even if they did work at the post office for 35 years or whatever.
Yeah.
There's just like, maybe that's a wisdom piece coming in, or like it's integrated or something. But I feel like it can shapeshift, certainly. And maybe it takes a wise old soul also to really know that you have had purpose all along.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's certainly things that come along with age, right? I mean, there just are. I mean, there's just something that to be said about, having been like twirled around on the dance floor a few times, you've been some places, you've seen some things, you've done some stuff,
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a very interesting time of life that we're in with all that's available to us to be able to, really put out into the world, our value and connect with different people and feel fulfillment in whatever way that kind of takes.
Absolutely. And, a lot of people will come to yoga with some degree of that awareness, but that's usually tucked behind like, oh, well, my doctor said I should try this, or, oh, I'm healing from a, back surgery, or something that's very specific and physical and like body-based and timely. And then they get into the practice, whether or not you can do the party tricks, we don't care.
Yeah.
And realize like, wow, I'm actually able to access something deeper of myself, and therein access whatever it may be, whether it's spiritual or energetic or even emotional and so on, that answers to a purpose piece. If they happen to feel kind of wobbly or flaily just in life, which that's all of us at any given moment. So I feel like a yoga practice, and again, not specific even to just the physical, but can really be this neat, like chemistry lab to discover, wow, where do I feel alive? And what does light me up in that I'm like available to my purpose kind of thing.
Yeah. I was just thinking how you probably have seen so many people at such a unique time in their life, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like when the average, I don't know if average is the right word, but when a person who wasn't drawn to spirituality at like a young age, right, does turn to, a yoga practice or some sort of spirituality at a time in their life, it's usually at a time of great change or at a time where like they're going through something different and uncomfortable. And so it's kind of like they get led to this activity or this group of people where you're focusing on something different, which really gets you in that different headspace. And, you start to see those changes in people, and like, all these things that once were like, considered like woo woo, it's now so much more common.
Thankfully. No, you're absolutely right. So often that is like an entry ramp, right? For people to their practice. And Sometimes it's something strictly physical, and they're almost surprised when there's something more to that.
Yeah.
Or the alternative that you're speaking to is, wow, major life watershed moment, and kind of grasping for meaning anywhere.
Yeah.
And we've all been that person multiple times. But absolutely. I mean, when I started doing deep one-on-one work with people, I mean, you could imagine, sat with people through every possible just human threshold.
Yeah.
From grief and loss to love and bliss and health and loss of that, and betrayal and reunion. And I mean, fill in the blank. I will never forget walking into a client's home, and she greeted me and had just in the last like 2 hours had an affair. And that was the content of our session that day. And then
amazing.
Right. And then later in the week, you know, sitting with someone who was dealing with like a death in the family and loss and all of these things. But the through line being the full spectrum of the human experience, you know, and in that moment, who isn't seeking something from within or without, you know, we're usually, I'll speak for myself, just like yelling into the abyss.
Right.
Right. It's like that. I think it's Anne Lamott who says, I know 2 prayers, and they are help me and thank you. Help me and thank you. And it's that when everything else is that you think, you know, is stripped away, and then what remains, it's me left to my own devices. So now what do I do with that? And now we're back to purpose.
Yeah.
Right. Because, okay, if and when like I heal, however long it may take from whatever the thing is. Yeah. And then guaranteed we're not the same person on the other side.
No, absolutely not.
So then, wow, what do I do with that information? You know, and chances are we're more empathetic and available to like connect with other people. And I know every time I myself have cycled through something like that, whether it was a divorce or like massive career upheaval or big move or like any relationship dissolution, anything like that, on the other side of that, I'm like, wow, I'm not that same person. Thank God. And now how do I use that? Like, what do I do with that?
Well, and that's the key is, what do you do once you know? And I think that is so important to, like, even at this last retreat. So I was at a retreat the week before last, like I was telling you before we started recording. And on the last night, before dinner, I ended up being just invited. One of the girls who was co-hosting the retreat, when she works with her VIP clients, she will do this thing that she calls the dream. And it's basically like she gets a huge whiteboard, and then she just says, like, if there were no restrictions, like no financial, no location, no relational, no job, if there was nothing in the way of you living your dream life, like, tell me what your dream life is. Wow. So I just happened to walk into the room, and she was like, Nikki, let's do this. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was kind of like, at first I was like, wait, is everybody doing this on this retreat? And I just like, it's now my turn. But then I was like, no, we've all been in the same room practically for the last 3 days. So I felt really grateful that they, you know, and she was working, and one of the other girls was kind of like helping her like write everything out on the board. And when it was all done and mapped out, she said, okay, so what's stopping you from living this life tomorrow?
Wow.
And I was like, honestly, like, nothing. And that was like such a cool realization, because even though some of the things, yes, they do require more money than I currently have, I still am not discounting them. I'm going to make the money, and I'm going to be able to do those things. And I'm on the path, right? So it was such a eye-opening thing. But for me, what it really solidified was I had been putting my energy and effort into these things that I felt like I should be doing, yet I was procrastinating immensely and not doing them. And I finally realized it's because I don't fucking want to do those things. I don't want to do those things. So I keep saying like, oh, I should be doing this or I should be doing that. And I'm not doing it because I simply don't want to. So now I'm just refocused all of my energy into doing all the things that I do want to be doing, because I truly felt like I left there and I was like, I have no choice but to give 100% to these things, because if this is my dream life and I look at that board and I'm like, oh yeah, that is it, then I have no choice, or I'd be doing myself a disservice.
And then some.
Mm-hmm.
And then some. I love that practice. I love that practice. And I feel like it really calls us out, like you have spoken to, on our bullshit and like any excuse, any like pseudo obstacle, any should, which that's how I like lived my first 30 years of life, I think, was just the prescribed shoulds. And then like breaking through that. Wow. Yes to the freedom. And then you actually know who you are.
Right? Exactly. And it's so neat to feel, I honestly, like I do a solo episode once a month. And one of the things that I said in April's episode was that I feel like I'm no longer taking steps forward. I feel like I'm taking leaps forward. And that was like the coolest feeling. And to like be able to say that, and then to be able to be working on everything that I know is coming next, and feeling like in some ways I'm like, holy shit. But I'm also like, oh my God, I'm so giddy because I'm so excited that like this is my reality that I've created for myself.
Absolutely. I mean, there's something to be said. I talk about this a lot with my business clients in regard to making your own momentum.
Yes, totally.
Out of thin air. And it pretty much always starts with a decision to do that without knowing the details, without any guarantee.
Yeah.
Or even like figuring out, you know, the logistics, the strategy, whatever, but just the decision.
Yes.
That this isn't it. And I don't know what is, but we're going to move in a direction that will inevitably take me where I need to be.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
It is. I love that what you said about that, like the momentum piece of it, because it really does come down to like, it's like, that's like that bit, just deciding. It's because then it's like, then you can start going down that path. Even if you don't know what every step is, you can't perfectly plan out all of it. And then also like anything, you know, it's like when, I mean, I experience this often with travel. It's like, I'll be going somewhere that I've never been, and I'll create this experience in my mind of what it's going to be like. And then I get there and that I completely forget about that because it's all something completely different that I never even imagined. For better or worse, sometimes worse.
Totally. And all the while, like you got yourself there.
Yeah.
You got yourself there. You started the snowball effect.
Yeah.
And things are happening. Things are changing. No, I'm like currently obsessed with this myself, because it's like putting energy to the thought.
Yeah.
And then action with the energy, and now you're compounding and things can start to take off. And then what are you doing? Also really creating evidence for yourself that, wow, I can create out of thin air.
Yeah.
Wow, this path could possibly work. Wow, there could be purpose on the other side because I'm moving. And it's like that principle, and a body in motion stays in motion, and an object at rest stays at rest. Like,
totally.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. It's so true. You know, you mentioned energy, and energy is something that I'm just like so focused on. Like every decision I make is based on energy. Every interaction that I have is based on energy. And also, though, I will say this, and I had thought about this before you and I jumped in here, is that, so I went to Austin for that retreat that I was telling you about. I went a few days prior to just kind of like check out the city, hang out. And then I stayed a couple of days after because one of my friends from college drove up she's living in Dallas. So she drove and met me, and we spent a couple of days together. So overall, like that was, for somebody who spends quite a bit of time alone, that was a lot of days of people and energy in one big chunk. And I was really like energetically depleted after that. And so you know, on one hand, I was grateful that I know myself well enough to know how I was feeling, to be able to just kind of, okay, like I can hang out and recharge. But I also did like kind of think to myself, like, maybe you do need to spend more time with people, because like this took a lot out of you, and I don't want it to take that much out of me, you know?
Yeah. I do know. As an extroverted introvert, I so know. And I feel like energetic hygiene around that is everything.
Yeah.
And it may or may not be like blowing out your system with more capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, it's almost like titrating, like some exposure and then recalibrate, and then some more exposure and then recalibrate, because otherwise I'm with you. That like too much will completely take me out.
Yeah, it really did.
It requires, like for me, it requires a really intentional recalibration that is like a big going inward and regenerating and replenishing all the things, whether that's like do not disturb and nap or spa or just shut it down, whatever it is, in order to go back out and then do it again.
Yeah, and being able to give and being able to be there. And you know, it's funny. I think the first time that I can actively recognize feeling like the things around me had energy that I either wanted or didn't want. I've definitely felt that way with people. I mean, I know that I've felt that way throughout my life, where like if somebody has always been like overly negative, it's always been tough for me to be around somebody like that for too much time. Cause I remember there was this one girl that I knew in college, and I just was like, it was so baffling to me, because she could take like the best day and always like add this caveat that was like, you know, oh my God, it was the best day. Like we went to the beach and we had the best ice cream and we did this and we did that. But I got a sunburn. It's like, there's always a but, you know? And I'm like, why? Like, why is there always this negative but? But I mean, I think like the first time, like really realizing that like things around me had energy that I either liked or disliked was when we were in Panama, and I had some different jewelry with me. And I remember at one point I was like, I have to take some of, like, there were a couple of pieces that I was like, I need to take these off because I didn't like how I was feeling with them on. And I remember being like, that is so interesting. And, you know, now I'm at a point where with jewelry where it's like, all my jewelry is like very intentional and like from travels, or it was maybe a gift from somebody, but it's not just like hodgepodge, like, oh, like I love your necklace and you're like, here, you can have it. I'm like, no, that's, you know, that's yours, you know, like, or like buying some cheap crap at like a, you know, Forever 21 or something. It's more purposeful,
intentional
to go back.
No, energy is so real, and I love that you kind of discovered that in Panama. That's amazing. That's the first time you've shared that with me. And once you are awake to that, you can't miss it, for better or for worse. And that's like a blessing and a curse, I think, because wow, like you're so susceptible and sensitive and aware, and also like you talking about post retreat having to really recalibrate after that. Just it's like you can bleed out.
Yeah,
totally. I mean, and that's
wild.
Yeah, I kind of learned that the hard way, actually, after leading retreats for so long. I learned like, wow, I would have to come back and just be mute for a week.
I can believe it. I mean, having to coordinate. I mean, I just remember I even remember going on that trip, and like, I remember you were like collecting our passports at the airport because we had to get on that puddle jumper plane. And I just remember like, this is a lot of work that she is doing and there was only like 11 of us, 10 of us. It wasn't like it was this like groups of 30 or something that you see some of these people. I was just like, whoo, that's a lot.
Well, and file under things that I was doing in my former career and life that actually ended up helping me in the new iteration, right? So yeah, it kind of all comes full circle.
Yeah, no, that's so true. It is funny, like these little things, like there's something that you take from every single part of the journey. And then you have these moments where you're like, oh, wait, like this is totally exactly why I'm good at this, even though it's these two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. I'm curious about what was on your dream whiteboard at the retreat last week.
I mean, lots of good stuff. I am not ready to share that publicly, but when we stop recording, I will definitely give you the lowdown. Yeah. You know, it's funny because like I feel like I'm very open and I want to be, but I also am like, ooh, like I feel like there are certain things, going back to like, it can't all be perfect, right? There are a few things that I really want like the ducks to be in a row, so to speak, before I'm actively like, here we go.
Well, and there's an energy to sharing stuff publicly too.
Yeah.
So I think that is so freaking real.
Yeah. I mean, it really is it's just really interesting. So I'm so excited to see how it kind of all unfolds once I have just a few kind of like back end things like completely dialed in, and then just how it all unfolds. So I'm very
That's
much looking
great.
forward to seeing where I am come the end of the summer and just what's going on in this world that I've created.
I'm excited for you. I'm so excited for you.
Thanks.
I feel similarly. I'm really in a kind of I'm always in like a recreation rebirth mode, but I'm really this year feeling like this, wow, I don't know what's next in a lot of ways. And at the moment, I love that. And there have been like versions of me where that was so anxiety inducing or panic creating and, judgment and so on and so forth. And now I'm like, wow, like we have come so far.
Totally.
And I actually don't know. Like I'm thinking if I was with you at that retreat, what I might put on that board. And I have some big, vast things, but for like the rest of this year, I am wide open.
That's the best feeling.
But I feel like it took work to get to be okay with that.
Oh my God.
Right?
100%. It takes so much work to even like erase the different like limiting beliefs that you have, or even the beliefs that are not beliefs, even the thoughts that you have that maybe other people might be thinking. Now, I am the first to say that I really don't care what other people think of how I'm living my life. But I mean, I would be lying if I said that I didn't care, like, for example, what my mom and dad think about me or what some of my closest friends think about me. And I've really had to work at pushing those, assumptions, that's the word I'm looking for, assumptions aside and going, well, why would I assume that they're thinking this about me? Or why would I assume that they're worried about me because of X, Y, or Z? And really just like putting that, like saying, no, like that is not reality, and go and keep doing what you're doing and keep living how you're living. And, like taking that pressure off of myself to just be able to be and to live and to do, and then, share things as I go. And I mean, it's all in your head, right? So
like for better or for worse.
Yeah, exactly. But
Totally.
I mean, but to what you said about feeling like you're wide open, like that is truly how I felt. I mean, last summer when I sold my house and most of my stuff, I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. But I had no idea what I was saying yes to. And now I'm like, whoa, this has been really cool. And the growth and just like the things. And I have had that feeling. I do still feel like that. I feel like I'm just standing here like this, like,
yes,
here we are, here I am. Like, what do you got for me?
Like on the beach of Panama.
Yeah.
Totally wide open.
Totally.
I love that.
Yeah, it's exciting. So I'm glad that you're feeling that too.
I am feeling that, so stay tuned.
Yeah. Where are you traveling to next? I feel like you've got to have something on the horizon.
I do not have my next excursion or adventure booked. File also under I don't know.
Okay.
Just wide open.
Well, cool. Yeah. Well, something good is going to come your way. I can feel it.
100%. No, I feel like I have worked so hard to get to this place that finally, like, I dropped out of my head enough to be like, wow, I can actually just receive.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe we'll message and I'll join your retreat or your
know.
Travel thing.
I know. That's one thing I need to like really map out, because I just started writing about that the other day, and I was like, no, I want to make this happen.
Yes.
And make it fun for people who, like I said, who don't have that, who don't feel like they can travel solo, but like they really can, but they just need a little help getting through that first one.
Totally. Yeah. Well, keep me posted. I love that. And I love traveling solo, and I would totally travel with you again.
Oh, thanks. I know. We had so much fun.
We had a blast.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for your time and all of your insight into just life. How can people find you to learn about all the greatness that you are putting out into the world?
Thank you. Start with me on social media, nearly every platform at Elizabeth Rowan Yoga.
Perfect.
And we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening and watching. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe, all of the things. I appreciate every single one of you. And we will talk to you soon and see you next week. Bye.